Welcome to the Science of Sound. I'm your host, Aaron Fournier, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about mindfulness. What if I told you that your thoughts are actively shaping your reality? Today, we're diving into the science behind mindfulness, how it impacts your brain, your emotions, and even your physical health.
This is a Soaak podcast.
Welcome to the Science of Sound, where cutting-edge research meets real-world application. Hosted by Aaron Fournier, this podcast explores the fascinating intersection of sound, frequencies, and human performance. From the science behind bioharmonic resonance to the future of sound-based wellness, we break down the data, the discoveries, and the impact sound has on your mind and body. Let's dive in.
Today, I have Laura Widney in the studio with me. She's an expert in mind-body wellness, clinical applications of mindfulness, and frequency-based healing. She's also the president of Soaak Clinics. Laura, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about mindfulness and why it matters. So mindfulness is more than just a buzzword. It's a proven science-backed method for reducing stress, increasing cognition and cognitive capabilities, and even improving health. Can you tell us a little bit how mindfulness has been impactful for you in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Mindfulness is something that is very underrated, but it is so powerful in your everyday life. I feel like everything starts with your mindfulness practices. If your mind is constantly going 90 miles an hour throughout the day, which most of our minds are, it takes you in a direction, it takes your day in a direction that you don't mean for it to go. But it's all because you're not being mindful. You're not being mindful of what you're thinking. You're not being mindful of what you're doing.
Right.
And so it's so important and so powerful to take a second and learn how to be mindful of your thoughts and of your actions. And so for me, it's just little things throughout the day, waking up. It's just waking up, being mindful that your brain starts racing. It's like, okay, slow it down. I'm not going to think about that stressful event last night. First thing in the morning, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do my stretches, drink my coffee, whatever I do. It's so simple, but it's so hard sometimes to remember to be mindful throughout the day.
It is. And you even saying just being mindful from the moment you wake up. That's probably the hardest part for me, is because when I wake up, I'm immediately thinking about, okay, I have this meeting, I have this project, I need to run through this list, I need to get my daughter to school, and I've already lost it at that point, right? Like
Your
I already
mind's
started
already racing
on the wrong side of the bed at that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And because when you step out of the bed, that's actually scientifically, that's one of the most powerful times is right when you wake up and right before you go to bed, because your mind is still in a state of kind of that dream state. And so it's a really powerful, energetic state to be in. And if you wake up and immediately you let your mind just go, it just, like I said, it just takes you somewhere that you don't want to go. But if you know that's happening and you wake up and you use that time, that maybe 30 minutes that you're still kind of in and out of that dreamish state, you can really manifest. You can visualize things, and the energy around you it's really powerful. So to wake up and say you're grateful for the things that happened the day before, or the things that they're going to happen that day, it's really powerful. And also, your problems or your situations, your appointments, whatever you have going on that day, they're still going to be there. So it's like, take that time, take that 10 minutes to just like recalibrate and think about the day and be mindful of what you want that day to turn out like.
That's amazing. That's powerful.
Yeah, it
works. So I know that I'm already starting off my days wrong. And there you go. I've learned one thing already, and we just got started.
Take 10 minutes. It's really hard to do, because when you wake up, especially if you look at your phone right away, that is such a normal thing for all of us to do, is look at our phone. I'm
definitely guilty of that.
So I try really hard, don't click on any apps. Look at your phone, see what time it is, turn off your alarm, whatever, but don't click on anything else. Go brush your teeth, go do your things, give yourself time to
have a routine.
Yeah, have a routine. And then that is being mindful of your first 10 minutes.
Okay, so I want to pause that conversation and step back a little bit and look at what is mindfulness and zoom back a little bit further. So I have from the American Psychological Association. They define mindfulness as maintaining a moment-by-moment awareness of our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and our environment. So, you really you hit the nail on the head when you describe mindfulness. It really is. It's taking that second to stop, to breathe, to think, to be aware of everything that's going on around you and everything that's going on within you. So your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And the thing about, mindfulness for me is there is only the present moment. I know a lot of people have heard that statement, but it doesn't really feel like it when we're going about our day. It's like there's all the moments, there's the future, there's the past that you're constantly thinking about. But in reality, there really is only that present moment. And so if your mind is outside of that present moment, you're not being mindful.
Present, right?
Yeah, you're not present. And so you're, again, letting your thoughts control your life. And so when you're mindful and when you're in that moment, then the world opens up for you, because that is where life is. That is where love lives, is in the present moment.
Because all things are happening in that moment. Time is just a construct that we perceive.
Exactly.
And so that's why, you always hear, and we all experience this as we get older, time is just going faster. Like, I can't believe that it's already, 5 p.m. I can't believe that it's already January, and it's just months and time is flying by. But that's because we also have the perspective of when we were younger.
Right.
And so when we were younger, time really drug on. I remember being a little kid and, 10 minutes, oh my gosh, that was forever.
Exactly.
And now 10 minutes just goes by. But that's because as we age, our perception, we have so much more experience of time. And so our view on time changes.
Yeah, that's right. And I love that example of being a kid, because like as an adult, you have so many more thoughts in your head. I think that's why time goes by faster, or seems to, because it really doesn't. But you have so many more thoughts in your head, so you're just constantly occupied. Yeah. When you're a kid, you literally are just in that present moment having fun most of the time. And so that's why time is not, you don't feel that like rush feeling when you're a kid.
Yeah, that's amazing. So mindfulness, talking about the way that you perceive things, mindfulness is a mental practice that has emotional, physical benefits as well. So neuroplasticity and mindfulness. So the brain can actually rewire itself based on repeated thought patterns. So I know this is something that you've played around with and experienced before. What are some ways in your life where you've taken yourself from, maybe one mindset and shifted and said, nope, I'm not going to think that way or act that way or be that way. I'm going to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I have a lot of things that I've done in my life, like practices or things that I've tried that have made a huge difference in my life. One thing that I believe wholeheartedly, my dad taught me when I was little, is anything's possible. And so this is one thing I do present day, but I've done this all throughout my life, where you think about a situation and you're feeling like, how am I going to overcome this obstacle? How am I going to get on the other side of it? And being mindful of the fact that anything is possible. Like anything is possible. So just like reframing your brain to think, okay, I'm going to start thinking about this situation with that like solid platform. Anything's possible. So then what? Then how do I proceed with this task or whatever? And so I've done that a couple times. I have a couple crazy stories of getting a bunch of money. One time I was in a huge debt. I had a clinic. I've told this story on other podcasts before, but I had a clinic and I had people that were partners with me, and they stole a bunch of stuff from me. So it put me in a huge debt. Well, after that, I was just, I had no place to go, nothing to do. I was in a huge hole, it felt like. And so I kind of started with that premise of anything's possible, and this is not the end of me. This is not how, like, I know I can get out of it. And it was really crazy, because I felt that peace just with having that mindset of like,
which is a really important part of it, right? Is when you have peace, you're not bringing anxiety into your mindfulness practice. You're feeling that peace, and then I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder a little bit, but then you see the outcome that you want, right? And
that's exactly right.
When you go into any type of situation with that faith, right? With that peace, then you really can accomplish anything. Okay. And so,
it energetically opens up the good to come to you, versus if you're just constantly stressed and anxious about it, it's almost like your energy field is it's attracting the same. It's attracting the anxiety. And so when you position your mind, even though you're still nervous, you still might be scared, you still don't know what's going to happen, but your mindset is anything's possible and I can move through this. Yeah. And so, yeah, everything happens better when you're like that. So,
and in ways that you can't even, I think another really important part of this is not saying this is exactly how it has to happen, right? But saying, here's the end goal that I want, and I'm going to move towards that.
Yes.
However I feel is the best way to move towards that, right?
Yes.
And not every day is the same in moving towards that goal, but moving with peace, with faith towards that goal, and being open and receptive to whatever path leads you to that goal.
I love that. That is another one of my staples is, I'm not attached to the outcome. And I think that, knowing anything's possible, but also not being attached to the outcome, I think really lets God and the universe and the energy of the world really make the situation turn out for you the best, like the highest, best good for everyone involved. Right. And so that was really just kind of my mindfulness practice when I was going through this situation with my debt. It took, I did it for months and months before I saw results from my mindfulness practice, but I would do it every day. I'd spend an hour, I'd meditate, I'd pray, I'd visualize the money being in my bank account. And I made it like my daily task, like going to the gym, working out, you make it a thing. I made this a thing because I was really desperate. And and the whole time I was very peaceful, but the creditors are calling my phone, and it's it was really a forgiveness lesson and also just a lesson in faith for me. And so eventually I had some people that I know that knew me at the clinic. I had never met them, still have never met them, gift me $500,000, which was the exact amount that I was meditating on needing to pay off all my debt. And so that's one of my bigger stories where this stuff works. And, that actually helped catapult Soaak, the app as we know it. And so I just have such a reverence for how powerful we are. And the thing about mindfulness is you have to apply yourself. It's not just, I'm going to think a good thought, think, positive vibes, think good thoughts. You hear all these things and it's not necessarily that simple, because you have to do it diligently to really see the results you're wanting to see. It's a practice. You have to die to yourself, basically. And you have to make it a thing where you're repetitively, being mindful. It's like a muscle. Your brain is like a muscle. Your mind is like a muscle. You have to use it and be intentional and change your life.
You have to take a step, right? You have to be doing some type of action. So in your instance, your action was you made this in a practice. This was you going to the gym. This was you going to work, was meditating, was believing, was seeing the end goal, visualizing.
Right.
And at the same time, not being attached to the outcome, not saying this is exactly how it's going to work out for me. And this came about in a way that you never could have imagined. Yeah. And
it was crazy.
Exactly met your need, which is amazing.
I was shocked, but it was I wasn't shocked in a way, because I was I knew God was going to take care of me. I knew it was all going to work out, but how perfect did it work out? I was just in awe. Like I said, there's just such a reverence for, that power that we have within us. We are creators of our world, and God gave us that ability. And so if we harness the mindfulness practices, which there are a million mindfulness practices, if we harness that power and we really believe that anything's possible and use our own mind and free will to better our life, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing you can't accomplish.
Right. The only limitations are the limitations that we place upon ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What your dad said to you, that everything is possible, anything is possible. Having that mindset truly allows that to be true for you in your life.
That's right.
And it's so important to approach life in that way, because we are the ones that hold ourselves back, whether we do it intentionally or subconsciously. And so that's why what you said, waking up in the morning and being mindful initially, you're kind of checking yourself. You're kind of saying, where's my headspace at? Where's my frame of mind? Where am I today? And we'll get into it in a little bit. There's some easy ways to get to see inside your subconscious and get a glimpse of, oh, I didn't realize that was my thought pattern. But once you recognize it, once you see it, then you can address it, and then you can do something about it. But just starting your day even with that mindfulness practice is amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
And so I kind of wanted to take what you were just saying and also put a real life example to it. And so everything that you described is textbook visualization, right? You were mindfully visualizing an intended outcome, which you received, which was $500,000 to help you get out of debt, which was the exact amount that you needed to get out of debt. And it came from a source from people that you've still never met, who heard about you through one of your clients at your clinic. And you got a phone call one day and said, hey, we heard about you and we would like to gift you this money.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So taking another like a real life example would be professional sports teams. So mindfulness practices and visualization specifically is something that NFL players do all the time. All the top athletes do it. It's also something that we see in the military as well, is not only do you train, right? You as a athlete, you go to practice, right? You have scrimmages and then you play games. They also watch film and they see what they did right. They see what they did wrong. And then they visualize the best ones, visualize, winning the Super Bowl. They visualize throwing the game-winning pass or catching that pass. They visualize every step that it's going to take for them to get to whatever that goal is.
Yes.
And until this conversation, I don't know that I ever really thought about visualization as a mindfulness practice, but that is such an important component of it. That's really cool.
Absolutely. And the whole thing about visualization is your body doesn't know the difference between you being in the real situation or your mind thinking about it. It's like when you go to the movies and it's an action movie and, your cortisol's going nuts. Your body is really in that situation. It doesn't know the difference.
Right.
But you're really not. And so that's how visualization works, is you're visualizing it. Your body is thinking you're already in it. And so what happens is when you're sitting there visualizing that you've won the game and you made the touchdown or whatever, your energy field in the world around you is making that become a reality because you are collapsing the energetic fields around you with your mind, with your thoughts. They are frequencies. And so you're changing the frequency of your reality. So when you visualize that, you draw it to you and you make it happen.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So let's put a little bit of science behind it.
Yeah.
So there is a study from Harvard on the research of mindfulness and brain changes. And what they found is that meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which is our rational thinking. And it also reduces activity in the amygdala, which is where we have our stress and our fear responses. And so what they were doing with this specific study is just looking at a mindfulness practice, meditation, of which there are many, and the changes that is actually making to the prefrontal cortex, to a specific part of our brain. There's another study here from Harvard that was looking at the reticular activating system, which filters information based on what it is that we're focusing on. And what they found in this study, which is something we just talked about, is that if you focus on stress and negativity, so if you focus on what I would call bad things, right? Stress and fear and negativity, the brain will filter in more of that. So the brain, which really is just a pattern recognizing organ, that's all it does, is it is looking for patterns. If you're focused on fear and negativity patterns, then that is what you will find.
Yeah.
It's also what you're saying energetically, you will then attract as well.
Right.
And the kind of second part to this study is that they found that by using mindfulness, that you can reprogram the reticular activating system to focus on gratitude, to focus on positivity. So if you use mindfulness to shift your thinking from negativity to positivity, then that is what you will actually see, what you will experience, and what you will bring. So these are Harvard studies that are supporting mindfulness practices and exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's so cool. And to go a little bit further, some of the things that we've done in our clinic is we do neurofeedback. And so the neurofeedback is a great kind of a parallel to mindfulness practices, because neurofeedback retrains the synapses in the brain. It actually paves new pathways in the brain. So then when you get into that situation again, you don't have the same response because your brain has literally changed. Mindfulness, visualizations, prayer, meditation, that does the exact same thing. It retrains, like you're saying, it actually physically in the brain, it repaves new pathways and it makes the brain different. just by what we're thinking. And so if you're in a habitual pattern of anxiety and stress and all those things, it's almost like a wheel spinning, the inertia is going and going. And if you can get it to go the other direction, if you can just stop the chaos, the anxiety, maybe take a day or two and just really determine that you're going to change this pattern, it'll start going the other way. And physically, your brain will change. And then you won't have to catch yourself so many times. Things just become easier because your mind is retrained to think about a positive thing when something happens instead of a negative thing.
Yeah, so this is actually a perfect time to jump into what I was talking about earlier and getting a glimpse of what your subconscious is thinking. So when you drop something, when you spill something, when you do something that's unexpected, you have an immediate reaction, right? Yeah. And that immediate reaction can be bad or it can be positive.
Yeah.
But that immediate reaction is a glimpse into subconsciously what we're thinking, what we're feeling.
What's going on
So inside. If I spilled my coffee and I had an immediate negative reaction about that would show me, I could then stop and go, wow, I didn't realize that I was so stressed.
Yeah.
And then I could take a mindfulness moment, right? I could stop. I could think about, okay, what are the things that are causing me to be stressed? Do I really need to be stressed about those things? Or those are probably going to work themselves out.
Right.
And that is a practice that can just help us to calm down, to relax, to get out of that fight or flight mode and into that rest and digest.
That's so great. That's such a great example. It's like that alone could be a mindfulness practice for beginners. It's like anytime something happens that's normally like a dramatic, see how you react. I mean, it's not even having to do anything about it right away. Just be mindful of how you reacted.
Yeah.
Start learning yourself and like throughout the day, I did this, my kids did this and this is how I reacted all day. And you can assess yourself almost like you would, do self-therapy,
right.
Like assess yourself and be like, I yelled at my kids a lot today. What do I need to think about, And so that is mindfulness. It's not even like necessarily taking an action step to like then go meditate or then go do something afterwards. It's learning yourself. It's being mindful of what you do is just as powerful as taking action steps because it is an action step is being aware.
Yes. Once you can recognize a pattern, then you can start to do something about it. This was made apparent to me in a conversation I was having a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine who's a golfer, actually my brother-in-law. And he was golfing with one other person, and she has been at this course for 10 years, golfs it every day, knows it like the back of her hand. She missed a shot and ended up in a sand trap. And her immediate reaction was, oh, yay, I haven't been in the sand trap in a long time.
Oh, wow.
And it caught my brother-in-law off guard, so much so that it made an impact on him for him to then share the story with me. But that was a really cool moment for him, and I think for all of us, to see that just because something unexpected happens doesn't mean that it needs to be a negative. It can be a positive.
That's
it can be an exciting. And her reaction of landing in the sand trap, which is something that no golfer wants to be in, and having a positive reaction there just shows, the level of gratitude and happiness that she's at. And that's inspiring.
That is such a cool story because that also shows that she wasn't really attached to the outcome. Right. She seems like she was in that present moment. She was just really enjoying playing golf and learning and getting better. And so to her, that was a challenge that she was excited about,
That's
which is
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
And another kind of spin on that is everything works out for our good. I truly believe that. And so if you believe that, then when you do spill your coffee or when something happens, you hit it in the sand trap. It's like, if you tell yourself that worked out for my good, like that's kind of a crazy thought, to have it bad. So what we think is bad, which is not really bad, but something happened. And then you think that worked out for my good.
Yeah.
It's like reframe your thinking. Everything works out for your good. Everything can turn out for your good, no matter what it is. It's your ability to see it from a different perspective. That's where the magic is.
Yeah.
So that's such a cool story.
Yeah. Even you just saying that makes me think that really labeling something as good or bad is actually part of the problem. There is 100%. No good or bad. There is just living and loving the present moment and all of our experiences that we get to have through it.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yep. So my next question that I had for you, that you kind of brought up earlier was, how have you seen mindfulness practices impact patients at your clinic? And you were talking about utilizing neurofeedback. But the first step in neurofeedback is, before you can do any sessions, you actually get a brain map. So they scan your brain. Can you tell me a little bit more about neurofeedback? And earlier off camera, we mentioned that there might even be patients who do neurofeedback before they can even talk to a therapist.
Yeah.
So why might that be?
Yeah. So the brain maps basically just tell our therapist what's going on in the brain, what parts of the brain specifically are stressed or underactive or overactive. So it just gives them kind of an idea of what's going on, and it helps set the protocol for neurofeedback. So then once they do the neurofeedback, it takes 25 sessions. And so they do that neurofeedback and their brain starts to change over time. So by like session 10, that's when they're like, oh, I'm feeling different. I'm feeling better. And all they do is sit there and watch a movie, and the screen dims in and out. And when the screen dims, that's kind of when our machine goes and does its thing and starts to reprogram that brain. And then the screen brightens back up. So it's like a reward system basically for the brain. And so
just creating new neural pathways to optimize the brain to get it away from negative thought patterns or fear or anxiety or whatever that particular patient is experiencing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it's really simple. It's very relaxing for the patient. And so they go through that whole process, and after 25 sessions, most of our clients experience life-changing differences. We deal a lot with ADD, ADHD, autism, stress, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, things where your brain is really in a rut and you just can't get past it by yourself. And so a lot of times, because we have therapists that do the neurofeedback, and so then it's after they do the neurofeedback, then they go do therapy, talk therapy, and their brain is in their whole state of being, because when your brain changes, your whole body changes. And so they're in such a better state of mind where they can talk about their past, they can talk about their trauma and help kind of reprocess some things that way too. So, as far as, the mindfulness practices with the clients, I believe that's a mindfulness practice. Anything that you choose to like self-help, choosing to go do neurofeedback, or anything that you would choose to do to help yourself is being mindful. It's being mindful that, loving yourself and knowing that you got to take care of your body. You got to take care of your mind. You got to take care of your, yourself. And so I believe that's being mindful. But the other cool part is, when I first started in clinic, we started the sound frequencies. And so we would have people come in clinic to do the frequencies, and we had practitioners there that would, turn on the equipment and help them choose what they want to do. But the practitioner, what I found was the most helpful was when the practitioner encouraged them. It's like, you're going to be okay. This is all going to work out, and gave them some hope. And that paired with the frequencies, that's what you'll find in the Soaak app, is the mindful intentions and the frequencies. Yeah. But that was just the light bulb for me, that I'm like, it's the way that we talk to each other, and it's the way we talk to ourselves is what is like that light bulb that goes on. That's like, oh, I can feel better. I can get past this. This is, it's just a reality that I can change. So I saw clients just like light up. People were healed. They got better. I mean, I've seen all kinds of amazing testimonials with everything we've done in clinic. So,
right. And that's, again, kind of going back to the power of your words, which leads to the power of our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so our words are a vocalization of the thoughts that we're thinking.
Right.
And so that's another great way to kind of get a baseline. Where are we at is to, what are you talking about most often? Are there repetitive stories that keep coming up for you? And if so, why are those the stories that are top of mind?
Right.
That might actually, it's a highlight, right? That's an area for you to focus on and dive in and try and figure out, do some work around that.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like I've always seen us as like an onion. We're like, being mindful and doing mindfulness practices are really like peeling back layers of our onion. And so we have trauma, we have childhood things, we have all, layers and years and even ancestors that we bring with us, things that we, that we still carry with us in our mind, that, our subconscious.
All of our experiences which then also includes all of our parents' experiences.
Exactly.
And their parents' experience. And so
that's
generationally,
that's a lot of layers that, especially if you've had kind of a crazy generational thing going on, that's a lot of stuff you have to unload. And so being mindful is just knowing that you got a lot of layers that you need to work with, and B, just throughout the days, trying to kind of find ways to unload some of that stuff, to release some of that stuff, to forgive some of that stuff.
Not hold on to blame for that as well, because especially things that are passed down, there are studies that show that stress that a mother and father are experiencing before they're pregnant, as well as while they're pregnant, are having direct impacts on their future children.
Yeah, like on a cellular level.
There are genetic changes that happen because of stress that then get passed on to that child. So you could be the child of one of those experiences, and your DNA is structured a certain way because of your parental stress. That's not your fault.
That's not your fault.
And you shouldn't even view it as their fault either, right?
That's what I was going to say. It's probably not even their fault.
It is just what it is.
It's nobody's fault.
And it's, it's part of your life story. It's part of your experience. But the cool thing is that we can actually change our DNA. We can change the mechanisms that are turned on and off.
That's
Environmentally, it changes, but the way that we think, the way that we feel also changes our genetics, our code, because I forget the number, but we have millions of genetic markers, but only so many can be turned on and off at the same time, right? And so we have the ability to restructure that, to change that. And like you said, everything is possible.
Yeah.
And so we can create those changes, which gets into the next part. And you mentioned this briefly, is that there are physical health benefits that come about with mindfulness practices. So there's small things that can change. So, here looking at, this is an article from the Harvard Gazette, looking at studies and mindfulness practices, improving immune function, reducing inflammation, lowering stress-related disorders, improving anxiety, depression, chronic pain, high blood pressure, digestive issues. The list goes on and on and on and on. Things that are benefited by mindfulness practices that are physical health benefits. But we both have talked about a lot Joe Dispenza.
Yes.
This is probably the most amazing mindfulness practice, mindfulness physical health turnaround that I'm aware of in modern times. So do you want to share a little bit about Joe Dispenza and kind of
this
his
story
experience?
Is so fascinating to me because, so if you guys listening don't know what happened to Joe Dispenza, he was in a bike accident, a bicycle accident, and he, I think, broke his back.
Yes, yeah.
And he was in the hospital for months and months. And so he's a therapist by trade. And so he decided that he was going to heal himself with his mind. And so he would go through on a daily basis, and I can't remember how long it would take him to go through his full body, but he would close his eyes and he would visualize his spine, every single vertebrae being perfect. So he would go from the top of his head down through his toes, and he would visualize everything in his body being perfect. And the crazy part was if another thought would come into his mind, he would start over.
Wow.
He got to where he could focus the entire, I'm sure it took him an hour, but at least,
yeah.
But he would stop and he would start over so I don't know how many times he actually got through the whole thing. I'll have to read the book again, but it was just so fascinating because he was diligent about doing this. And so over time he healed himself completely.
Which is amazing because after his bike accident, he didn't have the movement of his lower extremities, I believe. And like you said, he was able with his mind, and he was a chiropractor. And so he was very familiar with how all of the different parts of the body are interconnected, and going through and visualizing each piece being exactly like it was supposed to be, even though I think there were crushed vertebrae and things like that. And by going through this practice and being told by his doctors, some of the best doctors in the world, you're never going to be able to walk again. We need to do this surgery to make, your life outcomes better, because there are things that could happen that could get even worse if we don't do this surgery on you. And I think it was a 2% chance of the surgery even being successful, but it was that was the best thing that modern medicine could do for him. And he said, no.
Yeah.
He said, no.
He said, no, I'm going to try something
do it my
else.
way.
Yeah. He was a chiropractor. I think I said a therapist, but that's why he knew like the body so well, and he could visualize all of those things. And it's like, if that goes for absolutely anybody in absolutely any situation, your mind is that powerful that you can change your physical body.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
If
you're not a believer in it now,
go read his book.
Go read that book.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That's probably the most extreme example that we
Yes.
can get right now.
And
It's
I've
amazing.
heard so many testimonials over the years, just people through the clinic and then just, peers in the medical community of, people healing themselves of cancer and all kinds of different things just with mindset. And so it's just something that is so underestimated and underutilized. And is so possible.
Yeah. So my next question is, if there was someone who is skeptical about mindfulness, what's one small action that they can take today to experience its benefits?
Yeah. Well, I would say if you're skeptical, you're probably not in the mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
So I would say just start by, assessing your thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Like that's just that alone is being mindful of assessing how you feel about meditation or visualization or whatever you think mindfulness is, think about it. And then, I think one of the most powerful mindfulness practices is gratitude, because that holds one of the highest frequencies. And so when you're grateful and when you express gratitude for something, things manifest quicker. And so I would say that would be a great first step. Whether you're skeptical or believe in this or not, I'm sure there's something to be grateful for. I'm sure you've got a great family or a great job or something that you feel like is going good for you in your life. Right. Spend 2 minutes. Spend 2 minutes twice a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the night, and just say what you're thankful for. I think that's a great place to start.
That's amazing. Well, what if we actually do that here now?
Yeah.
What if we take 2 minutes and just, as a group, collectively have a mindfulness 2-minute moment? What do we think about that?
Yeah, I love that. I think that would be a great idea.
Awesome. So we're going to think about gratitude. Is that what we should do?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, I love to play a frequency when I meditate. So maybe we could play one of the frequencies. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think, being mindful of your day is such a great reset. When you're just going and hustling throughout the day, it's such a great way to kind of stop the inertia of the chaos. And so even if it's 60 seconds, even if it's 30 seconds, like it's just the intention that matters, and, it builds on one another. So, if you haven't ever meditated before or, taken the time, I think this is a great way, do it with us in 2 minutes. You've got if you've listened to this whole thing, you've got 2 more minutes.
So I've pulled open the Soaak app. I'm going to play Focus.
Okay.
I'll do the music version. I'll just play this quietly in the background for us.
Okay.
And we'll just do 2 minutes of meditation on gratitude.
Okay.
So I like to start my mindfulness practices with a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Mm-hmm. That's something that is kind of found throughout all, I think, historical mindfulness practices. When we think about different cultures and the way that they practice meditation.
Yeah.
And being very conscious of our breath.
Yeah.
And then something else I like to do is I like to, like you mentioned with Joe Dispenza, I actually like to go through my body and just feel every part of my body from my head to my toes, to just be in that moment, just to be in that presence, in that experience.
Yeah. I think the breath part of it is a great way to get in the zone, because especially if you can't stop your mind from racing, it's the breathing that brings you, it brings your mind to calm, basically. It gives you something to think about, but it's just your breath. And so you're just following your breath up and down. So
just an easy thing to focus on.
So that's something that you can start
breathing
with.
in and breathing out.
Right. And then your body chills out and you're able to just, be free from thought.
Yeah. Well, we hope that in that moment, everyone was able to get out of the fight or flight mode and into the rest and digest mode, and to relax a little bit and to have a moment to just be thankful, be grateful for all of the blessings that are happening in our lives. I know I'm grateful for you, for being here, for having you in my life, for our crew who helps make all this happen, and for this opportunity to share this story today, to have this conversation and to share news about being mindful, about being present, about being grateful.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I was just sitting there being grateful for everybody that's listening. They're listening because they're interested in what we're talking about. And, I just bless everyone, that's listening. Bless your life and your family and your goals and dreams. I feel like we are just a big community of people that are like-minded, and we want to see each other prosper. And,
right.
And we all know that love is the main thing. It is the path we should all be aspiring to take and to learn, and so I just appreciate being here. I love the conversation. This is awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to leave you with a thought, and that is, your mind is the control center of your life, and what you think about, you bring about. And I really want you to think about that. What you think about, you bring about. That's one of many phrases that we talk about all the time on the Soaak team. Another one is that mindsets manifest. So the mind is the control center of your life, and what you think about, you bring about. So use mindfulness to shape the reality that you want to live.
That's awesome.
I think that that's just a really powerful statement to kind of wrap up the conversation today. And please, listeners, let us know. Let us know about your mindfulness practices. Let us know about what you experienced in that meditative moment with us. And let us know what you want to hear about next. We're always open to your feedback and look forward to having future conversations with you. And thank you again, Laura, for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to The Science of Sound with Aaron Fournier. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more resources on frequency-based wellness, follow along at Soaak Podcast. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and stay in tune with the science of sound.